Okay, we're about to spray the primer. We have done 3 cross coats of EkoFill. So now we go to the EkoPrime. And technically this is an optional step, but it also kind of depends on what color you're going to. We're going to yellow, so it's recommended that we do a white primer. And honestly, I would probably not skip this step even if I wasn't going to yellow. That white primer is it's some good stuff. This EkoFill, even when it's sanded down to 400 grit, it's just not as smooth as you can get with the EkoFill, or excuse me, with EkoPrime. EkoPrime just sands really, really nice. So I think it's just a better product to have right before you go to the EkoPoly Premium. What we have done, well, at least with the other wing, so this is our second wing. The first wing was 1 gallon of EkoFill, and then we actually ended up doing 1 gallon of EkoPrime before we went to the EkoPoly Premium. And I actually have to think how much yellow we put on. I don't know if it was a gallon or less than a gallon, but yeah, so we probably put on more primer than some people would do. And I imagine we're probably going to do another gallon here. I mean, it would just kind of make sense anyway, at least for balance. I don't think it would make that big of a difference. So if it was 2/3 of a gallon versus a gallon on the other side, I think that would be small potatoes. But yeah, it's just a good product. So I don't know if I'm going to actually film myself spraying it. The challenge I have is that even with the ventilation at the end, the air still gets pretty misty with the paint. And I think you may have seen one of my other videos where I put a bag over the camera lens, and it kind of worked, but it really just was a little too fuzzy, and I don't know, I don't think it's particularly nice to watch with a fuzzy lens. I'll see if I can find a better solution before we get to the EkoPoly Premium, the yellow. See if I can make that a little clearer, find some other way to put a lens over or a cover over the lens. So anyway, I'll come back after we've sprayed, and at least the first cross coat, and then yeah, show you where we're at and what it's looking like. We're gonna be shooting for around 21 to 23 psi at the gun. Trying to shoot it essentially wet, where it's gonna go on, where it's gonna look, as I'm going across, it'll look glossy and wet, and it actually dries and kind of goes over kind of a dull satin finish pretty quick. But it does look pretty wet, I guess a little longer than this would. So we want it to go on wet. We don't want it to be dry. It'll be too rough. If it goes on wet, it leaves a really nice smooth surface. So that's what we're shooting for, and hopefully I can do that. Still learning the process here. And just like anyone else, it's something new, but figuring it out. All right, we just finished spraying the EkoPrime. Went pretty good. Not perfect, and I'll show you where it's not perfect. But from a distance here, it looks good. No runs, no solvent pops, none of that stuff. Challenge I still have, and I'm actually a little floored as to why I'm having this challenge, but it is still dry, or at least the finish is. Let me see if I can zoom in there. Oh, that's a little too much. I'm good. There we go. See that? That's our dirty fingernails. That's just kind of a dry, rough finish. Now, for this, it's fine, because it sands so easily. I mean, if you've ever, it's almost like sanding drywall compound. I mean, it's just turns to powder very, very easily. But I'll try, if I can find a photo, I'll try to find one of the ailerons. We didn't have this problem when we were doing the ailerons. And we really shouldn't have this problem now, because it seems like we have a better setup than we had when we were spraying the ailerons upstairs. Anyway, if I can find a photo, when we sprayed the ailerons, boy, it was just a super glossy shine. And that glossy shine didn't go away until probably the next day, or maybe just a couple hours.
Yeah, here you can see when we were spraying the ailerons last year, they were pretty shiny immediately, and they stayed wet like that. So here's the next day, and obviously it went back to the dull color. Then when I read the side of the container for the EkoPrime, it clearly indicates that to get a smooth finish, I should be diluting this 10%. So I think we're going to be trying that this next time.
So this is one full cross coat with 1.5 turns on the gun. We're using the ProTech, the ProTech 4000, I think. And then let that dry, which is pretty quick. And then, you know, pretty much once you're done with the wing, then it's ready to go again for the second coat. And then the second time, or when I was doing the actual second coat, then I turned it up to 1 3/4. And yeah, I went through 2/3 of a gallon. And on the second coat actually isn't a full cross coat. It's actually just one horizontal because it was laid on heavier. And that seemed to work fine. Anyway, at the gun, we're getting 21, 23, at most 25. It might be a light spot there. Yeah. Things you can see in the camera that you can't see when we're otherwise. Yeah, probably could have used a little more paint in that area. So again, the point of this is to just be able to sand this super smooth in preparation for the yellow, and then just have a nice base of white underneath the yellow so the yellow pops. So that's the whole point of the primer here. The primer was, or the EkoPoly Premium would stick just fine to the EcoFill gray. Oh, I thought I'd touch up on one more thing. Masks here. So I've primarily been using this mask here, which is a better mask, especially with these 100, I don't know what they're called again, but the filtration says Nosh 100, I think. Sorry if I'm not that familiar with what the filtration is, but it's supposed to, filter more. So I use this one for the other wing, from the EcoFill all the way up to the yellow, and obviously you can see the yellow in there. By the time I got to the yellow, I was noticing, it was hindering my ability to breathe smoothly. So, but these are kind of expensive filters. So then I went to another mask, just a Harbor Freight mask, and switched out the filters to just their cheap little carbon filters. That worked good until today. So he's clogged up, totally clogged up. So as I'm like, I don't know, halfway through spraying the primer, it was getting hard to breathe, to the point where my chest was hurting. I was like, oh dear, this is not gonna work. So I stepped out, switched over to this one. A very noticeable difference. This still had filtration left. These were totally clogged. And I have new cartridges for this. I was planning on just using these up to the point of spraying the yellow so that I could have some better airflow with the yellow. I think that'll still be my plan next time around, as I'll just have some cheaper cartridges and then kind of focus on these on the yellow. But if anything, for those that are doing this for themselves, buy a lot of extra cartridges. You're going to need them because they clog up. I mean, these are better for sure than the cheapy ones from Harbor Freight, or you can probably get the cheapy ones from Home Depot and Lowe's. And then you can see our little filter setup here. This is just the Harbor Freight one. Works okay. We're still getting some water. I did end up putting one of these filters on the end of the gun. I think that helped a ton. Desiccant is already pink from absorbing water, so that's supposed to be blue. So, but it works good. So you put in fresh desiccant, and then a whole spraying session, it turns pink. So, and then you can recharge it by sticking them in the microwave. And yeah, this is just for draining. I think I probably showed that in a prior video. And then we can drain from here.